one painting. In his entire life, he sold one painting. His neighbors called him a madman. His family called him a failure. Art dealers laughed at his work. He was so poor. He sometimes couldn't afford bread. He cut off his own ear. He locked himself in an asylum. He shot himself in the chest at 37 and died, broke, alone, and completely forgotten. Today, his paintings sell for over $100 million. One single painting sold for $117 million in 2022. His most famous work, The Starry Night, could be worth up to $1 billion. But Vincent never saw a single dollar of it. He died thinking he was worthless. He died thinking his art meant nothing. His name was Vincent Van Gogh. And the world was completely, utterly wrong about him. March 30th, 1853. A baby boy was born in a small village in the Netherlands called Groot Zundert. His parents named him Vincent. But here's something most people don't know. Vincent Van Gogh was named after his dead brother, exactly 1 year before Vincent was born. His mother gave birth to another boy, also named Vincent. That baby was stillborn. So every single week of his childhood, young Vincent walked past a gravestone in the church cemetery. A gravestone, with his own name carved into it. Vincent Van Gogh. Can you imagine that? Growing up as the replacement child? Living every day in the shadow of a brother you never met? Knowing you were born to fill a hole in your mother's heart that you could never truly fill? His childhood was, in his own words, austere, cold, and sterile. His father was a strict Protestant minister who never understood him. His mother was emotionally distant. Young Vincent wandered alone through fields and forests, watching nature for hours. He didn't fit in with other children. He didn't fit in anywhere. And that crushing feeling of not belonging would haunt him for the rest of his life. At 16 years old, Vincent got his first real job. His uncle arranged for him to work at an art dealership called Goupil & Company. For a while, things actually went well. He was transferred to London. He was earning more money than his own father. His brother Theo's wife would later say, this was probably the happiest time of Vincent's entire life. But then, everything changed. Vincent fell in love with his landlord's daughter, a young woman named Eugenie. He loved her deeply, obsessively. He thought about her constantly. And when he finally gathered the courage to confess his feelings, she rejected him. She was already secretly engaged to someone else. This rejection completely destroyed him. Vincent became isolated, depressed. He stopped caring about his job. He argued with customers. He told wealthy clients not to buy paintings because he thought they were ugly. You cannot do that when you work in sales. In 1876, Goupil fired him. So what does a failed art dealer do next? Vincent tried to become a teacher. He took a job at a boarding school in England. That didn't work out. Then he tried to become a preacher like his father. He studied theology in Amsterdam for over a year. He failed the entrance exam. But Vincent didn't give up on God yet. He convinced a missionary school to send him to the Borinage, a coal mining region in Belgium, one of the poorest, darkest, most desperate places in Europe. Here, Vincent thought he finally found his calling. He lived among the miners. He gave away all his food, all his clothes, all his money. He slept on cold floors. He bandaged their wounds. He read them the Bible by candlelight deep underground. But the church officials thought he was going too far. They said he was too extreme, too passionate, too unstable. In 1879, they fired him. Let's count Vincent's failures. Failed as an art dealer, failed as a teacher, failed as a theology student, failed as a missionary. He was 26 years old. No job, no money, no purpose, no direction. His own family thought he was a complete disgrace. But something was about to change. In the darkness of those coal mines, Vincent had started drawing. He sketched the miners after their brutal shifts, their exhausted faces, their blackened hands, their bent and broken bodies. And for the first time in his entire life, Vincent felt like he was doing something that mattered. In 1880, at the age of 27, Vincent Van Gogh made a decision that would change the history of art forever. He decided to become a painter. His younger brother Theo, who now worked at an art dealership in Paris, agreed to support him financially. Every single month, Theo sent money so Vincent could buy canvases, paints, and food. This arrangement would continue for the rest of Vincent's life. Let that sink in. Vincent Van Gogh, one of the most celebrated artists in human history, could not support himself from his art. His younger brother paid his bills every single month, until the day Vincent died. Vincent threw himself into painting with obsessive intensity. He taught himself to draw by copying other artists. He studied anatomy. He practiced for hours every single day, sometimes making hundreds of sketches in a single month. But formal art school didn't work out either. He enrolled at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Brussels. He clashed with his teachers immediately. He was told to repeat a year. He left in frustration. He enrolled at the Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp. Again, he fought with his professors. One instructor criticized his technique. Vincent screamed at him in front of the entire class. He was essentially expelled, rejected, once again. While Vincent's art career slowly took shape, his personal life fell apart. In 1881, he fell desperately in love with his cousin Key. She was a young widow with a small child. Vincent believed she was his soulmate. He proposed marriage. Her response came in 3 devastating words: no, nay, never. But Vincent couldn't accept this rejection. He traveled to her parents' house in Amsterdam. He demanded to see her. When they refused, he held his hand directly over a lamp flame, burning his own flesh. He told them he would keep it there until they let him see Key. They blew out the flame and threw him out of the house. His own family called his behavior disgusting. A year later, Vincent found another woman, a prostitute named Cian. She was pregnant, abandoned, and had a young daughter. Vincent took them all in. He wanted to marry her and give her children a proper home. But his family was horrified. His father threatened to have Vincent committed to a mental asylum, under enormous pressure. Vincent was forced to leave Cian. In 1884, he fell in love one final time. Her name was Margot, a neighbor's daughter. She loved him back. They made plans to marry, but her family forbade it. They said Vincent was a failure, a madman, not good enough for their daughter. This rejection devastated Margot so completely that she tried to take her own life. 3 women, 3 proposals, 3 rejections. At 35 years old, Vincent finally accepted his fate. He would live alone for the rest of his life. He would pour every ounce of love he had into his paintings. In 1886, Vincent moved to Paris to live with his brother Theo, and Paris changed everything. For the first time, Vincent saw the work of the Impressionists, Monet, Renoir, Pissarro. Their paintings were alive with light and vibrant color. Vincent's earlier work had been dark and somber, browns and blacks and grays, peasants sitting in shadows. But in Paris, his paintings exploded with life, brilliant yellows, deep vivid blues, swirling electric greens. He painted the cafes of Montmartre. He painted flowers. He painted himself again and again because he couldn't afford to pay models. 27 self-portraits in just 2 years. But Paris was exhausting. Too many artists competing for attention. Too much drinking. Too much chaos. In 1888, Vincent fled south to a small town called Arles, and there, in the warm, golden sunshine of southern France, Vincent created the masterpieces that would make him immortal. The sunflowers, the bedroom, cafe terrace at night, the yellow house. In just 2 years in Arles, Vincent painted over 200 paintings, sometimes finishing an entire canvas in a single day. He worked like a man possessed, but while his art flourished, his mind was slowly crumbling. Vincent had one great dream. He wanted to create a community of artists in Arles, a place where painters could live and create together. He called it the Studio of the South. He invited his friend Paul Gauguin to join him. Gauguin arrived in October 1888. It was an absolute disaster. The two artists fought constantly, about technique, about money, about philosophy, about everything. On the night of December 23rd, 1888, something inside Vincent's mind snapped. After a violent argument with Gauguin, Vincent took a razor and cut off part of his own left ear. He wrapped the bloody piece of flesh in newspaper, walked through the streets to a brothel, and gave it to a woman there as a Christmas gift. Gauguin fled Arles that very night. He never saw Vincent again. The people of Arles were terrified of this strange painter. 30 of his neighbors signed a petition. They called him a dangerous madman. They demanded he be removed from their town. Vincent voluntarily committed himself to the St. Paul de Moselle asylum. He would spend the next year of his life locked inside those walls. But here's what makes Vincent's story so incredible. Even locked inside an asylum, he never stopped painting. In fact, some of his greatest masterpieces were created behind those walls. The asylum gave him a small studio. They allowed him to paint during his lucid moments. And in June of 1889, Vincent looked out his window at the night sky over Saint-Remy, and he painted the starry night, that magnificent swirling sky, that brilliant glowing moon, those shimmering stars, that peaceful village sleeping below. It is now considered one of the most important paintings in the entire history of Western art. Experts estimate it could be worth up to $1 billion. It is seen by millions of visitors at the Museum of Modern Art in New York every single year. But do you know what Vincent thought of it? He called it a failure. In a letter to his brother Theo, Vincent dismissed the Starry Night. He didn't think it was particularly good. He had absolutely no idea what he had created. In May of 1890, Vincent left the asylum. He moved to a quiet village called Auvers-sur-Oise, near Paris, to be closer to Theo. A kind doctor named Paul Gachet agreed to look after him. Vincent painted Gachet's portrait. That single painting sold for $83 million in 1990, for 70 days. Vincent painted with furious, desperate energy. It was as if he knew his time was running out. He completed 75 paintings in just 70 days. More than one masterpiece per day. It was his final magnificent burst of genius. On July 27, 1890, Vincent walked out into a wheat field at sunset. He was carrying a revolver, and he shot himself in the chest. The bullet didn't kill him immediately. He managed to stumble back to his room at the inn. Theo received word and rushed to his brother's side. 2 days later, on July 29, 1890, Vincent Van Gogh died in his brother's arms. He was only 37 years old. His final words were, "The sadness will last forever." In his entire lifetime, Vincent Van Gogh sold exactly one painting. It was called The Red Vineyard. It sold for 400 francs, about $2,000 in today's money. He never experienced fame. He never experienced success. He never knew that one day, millions of people around the world would stand in line for hours just to look at his work. Theo, heartbroken by his brother's death, died just 6 months later. But Theo's wife, Johanna, dedicated the rest of her life to preserving Vincent's paintings and letters. She made absolutely certain that the world would finally see what Vincent had created. Today, Van Gogh's paintings have sold for a combined total of over $1 billion. Sunflowers sold for $40 million. Portrait of Dr. Gachet sold for $83 million. Orchard with Cypresses sold for $117 million in 2022. The Starry Night is considered absolutely priceless. The Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam welcomes nearly 2 million visitors every single year. People travel from every corner of the earth just to stand in front of his paintings. Vincent Van Gogh failed at everything he ever tried. He failed as an art dealer. He failed as a teacher. He failed as a preacher. He failed as a missionary. He failed at love 3 times. He failed at art school twice. He was rejected by his employers, rejected by his family, rejected by the women he loved, rejected by art critics, even rejected by his own neighbors. He lived his entire adult life in poverty. He battled mental illness that he could not overcome. He died believing he was completely worthless. But today, Vincent Van Gogh is recognized as one of the greatest artists who has ever lived. His paintings hang in the most prestigious museums on every continent. His name is known by billions of people around the world. And the work that absolutely nobody wanted to buy is now worth more than most entire countries. Vincent Van Gogh was written off by everyone who knew him, but the world was wrong. If you are struggling right now, if people have given up on you, if you feel like a complete failure, remember Vincent. He created over 900 paintings and 1,100 drawings in just 10 years. He never stopped creating, even when no one believed in him, even when he was locked in an asylum, even when he couldn't sell a single painting. He kept working, because he had to, because creating was the only thing that made him feel alive, and because he never gave up. His art will live forever. The world may write you off, but your story is not over yet. If this story moved you, subscribe to Written Off. Next week, another incredible story of someone the world gave up on, because every single legend was once written off.